Hello, my name is Amanda Brahm and I am a middle school special education teacher. I have been working with middle school students for the past 5 years. For this research project, I chose to look at how the Really Great Reading program affects middle school special education students' reading fluency scores. The problem that we are seeing in our district was that the students' scores were not meeting the school and state requirements. One reason we felt like their reading fluency was low. Therefore, with a low reading fluency, they were not comprehending the material that they needed to be reading. The reason for choosing this topic was I wanted to assess how the RGR, or the Really Great Reading program, would influence the middle school special education students' reading fluency scores and seeing if we could increase those Iowa assessment scores for the state requirements. The next few slides are going to discuss a little bit of my literature review. The first part is being a fluent reader. Being a fluent reader is one who reads in a flowing manner and with accuracy. Meaning comes from more than just words. When you think about meaning, you need to also think about that it comes from expression and punctuation. Expression, how is the student showing sadness or happiness depending on the context of the passage? And are they using the appropriate punctuation, such as having a kind of questioning attitude when reading a question? The effect of fluency can have an effect on comprehension. According to Smith, if a student is moving quickly through a passage, they are able to develop meaning. However, a reader can get lost if they are spending too much time decoding, meaning that they start to lose that comprehension because they're focusing more on how to say what they are reading instead of what they are reading. Decoding unfamiliar words was another part that I looked at. Decoding is one of the most challenging tasks for a beginning reader and even sometimes for our advanced readers. Decoding is defined as breaking apart the words into their individual phonemes and syllables. In 2006, the National Association of School Boards of Education found that 10% of our secondary students were struggling with decoding, therefore it was affecting other assessment scores and their fluency and comprehension. Phonics and phonemic awareness is a big part of the Really Great Reading program, so I wanted to focus on those in the literature review. Phonics helps with written and spoken words. When a student or an individual knows phonics and how to decode a word, they become a more fluent reader. Phonemic awareness is the ability to hear and identify individual sounds. We think about phonemic awareness as not visually seeing those those letters, but only hearing the sounds that each of those letters make. With both phonics and phonemic awareness, it has been shown that a student that receives instruction with those do tend to have higher performance levels than those who are still struggling with phonics and phonemic awareness. So then I talked about the Really Great Reading program. Really Great Reading program is a research-based program designed to teach the basics of decoding. Automaticity in decoding is a critical skill for fluent reading and proficient comprehension. Automaticity means that it just comes automatically to them. They don't have to take the time to sound out each of the words because they are familiar with them and they are comfortable enough and have confidence with those phonics skills. With Really Great Reading, there are different phonics suites, such as Phonics Boost, Blitz, HD Word, and Blast. Each of these suites talk about different phonics skills that students need to have, things that they have already learned, but they may be missing. Some of the books move a little faster than others, and some of them move slower just depending on what level of students that you are working with. Some of them focus more toward elementary, where others look more at middle school and high school students. So some goals and objectives for the research. My overall question was, will the Really Great Reading program help increase the middle school special education students' reading fluency scores? I wanted to know if this program was an effective intervention for the students that I currently work with. The purpose of it was, again, to determine, will it increase those scores? Is it effective? So my hypothesis was that those participants in the Really Great Reading program, or the students that I was working with, would be able to increase their fluency scores after completing interventions using the Really Great Reading program and strategies. So the next few parts are talking a little bit about the methodology of this paper. So first I want to talk about the participants and the setting. The participants included 5 middle school students. All of these 5 students were currently and are currently still receiving special education services. 3 boys and 2 girls participated in the study. 3 of the 5 students were new to the middle school. 2 of those students were new to the middle school but continued to stay in our district. 1 of the 5 students was new to our district. She had actually came from an outside district, therefore completely unfamiliar with the program and what was going on. 1 of the students did have a behavior plan at the time of the study. The school that I work in is in a small farming district in southeast Iowa. We are 1 building, K-12, and at the time of the study there were about 160 students in grades 6 through 8. Materials that were needed to conduct this study for the Really Great Reading program included teacher lesson books. These teacher lesson books included everything that you needed to know for the lesson. It gave you even information to read prior to teaching the lesson to just kind of give yourself a little bit background knowledge or refresh your memory before working with the students, as well as all answer keys that were needed. Came with student workbooks where they used them for their 1-minute timed readings, as well as word sorts and other detective work when reading words and sentences. The magnet boards included tiles, magnetic tiles, and syllaboards. These were used throughout the lesson to allow the students to build their own words, write their words, and just kind of show everyone and the teacher what they had learned from the daily lesson. It also included diagnostic decoding surveys. These were used at the beginning and end of this study to see if the students were able to show growth. And I also had to use the BRI passages, Jamestown passages, and Easy CBM passages. 2 of these assessments, Jamestown and Easy CBM, were used with just the special education students for progress monitoring, and the BRI passages are used school-wide as progress monitoring for the district. The procedure was a 38-week period. I chose to use the entire school year to conduct this study to see the growth. During those first and final weeks, I did the pre and post assessments, which included those decoding surveys. And then throughout, I included some of those BRI passages and other progress monitoring tools. The Really Great Reading instruction took place every other day. This was just the best way to fit it into the schedule of mine and the students. During that 20 minutes, we did a 1-minute oral reading. We worked on phonemic awareness practice. We worked on the daily phonics concept for each of the lessons, as well as independent practice, which is where they use those workbooks. So next I want to talk a little bit about my results. For the beginning and advanced decoding surveys, you will see that the mean scores did increase for both. The standard deviation for the beginning decoding survey went from a 1.5 to a 1.1 with a p-value of 0.016, or 61, sorry. Advanced decoding surveys, the standard deviation went from a 4.1 to a 4.9 with a p-value of 0.079. Both of these assessments showed no statistically significant results. I believe that this was due to the fact that not all 5 students were able to increase their scores. However, on the beginning decoding survey, all students were able to increase their scores, so I was a little surprised that it was not statistically significant. For the BRI passages, you can see that the mean score went from a 77 to an 87. The standard deviation went from a 13 to a 9, and the p-value was a 0.210. Again, not statistically significant. However, 4 of the 5 students were able to increase their scores, and I believe this was due to the fact of it being the exact same passage in the fall and the spring. With the easy CBM passage, the mean score stayed the same. It did not change. However, the standard deviation did go from a 7 to a 15, and the p-value was a 1. Again, not statistically significant, but 3 of the 5 students were able to increase their scores. I believe that this is due to these being fiction passages, so students were focusing on the story a little more than what how fast they were reading and how they were reading. The last 2 assessments were the Jamestown passage and the really great reading passages. The mean score for Jamestown went from 67 to 74, the standard deviation from an 8 to a 13, with a p-value of 0.386. Not statistically significant, however, 2 of the 5 students were able to increase their scores. This is a nonfiction passage, so they do have larger vocabulary terms. With the really great reading, it went from a 99 to a 102 for the mean score, the standard deviation from a 9 to a 19. The p-value was 0.794. Again, it was not considered statistically significant. 2 of the 5 students did increase on this. I feel that they were able to increase because at the beginning of the passages there are some vocabulary terms that are introduced, so when they see them later on, they are familiar with what the word is. Next, I'm going to show you a few tables showing these results. My first table is looking at the mean scores and the standard deviation scores. You can see all 6 assessments on the far side, followed by the scores for the pre-test and the post-test. My next table, I focused on the t-value, degrees of freedom, and the p-value. Again, I list all 6 assessments. I then mentioned the degrees of freedom, which you can see are 4 across the board, the t-value, and again relisting those p-values that I had previously mentioned. Some implications included the results did not favor the hypothesis that I had originally come up with that all students would be able to increase scores. However, there were some students that showed growth through this study. Determination would be if we continue using this program in our district. Is it worthwhile for the special education students? My prediction is that by implementing it, we will see a growth in those students. We just need to continue working with them and using the Really Great Reading program as an intervention. Limitations and solutions included student attendance. As we know, some students tend to miss more school, so we need to encourage them to come to school and showing them how important it is to be there. Changes in the daily schedule. As teachers, we know our principals assign assemblies, we have fire, tornado drills, whatever it may be, so we need to reschedule those intervention times to be able to still fit the needs of our students. Student behaviors can also be a very important and big limitation. Having a good classroom management plan with expectations is the way to get past those and really expressing those expectations to our students. I want to show you a figure and images. The figure I chose to use was going over the gradual release of responsibility model. This is very important in the Really Great Reading program. Each lesson is already broke down into the I do, we do, you do. So I felt that this was important to add in my presentation and my project. Here are some photos of the Really Great Reading program tools. You can see the magnet board with the tiles and one of the Phonics Boost workbooks. Overall, I really enjoyed this research. It was so much fun watching the students grow and reporting to the parents, just seeing the looks on their faces. Instructional plans, I would say let's continue to use this. Let's track the success of our students. It went really well. These include the references, and I thank you for staying.